Um, okay, so I like to tell this story in full because I don't think I bring it up too often and it requires some context. So a long time ago, when the sector was much smaller and much more autistic, but also much less autistic in a different way, I was just beginning to stream. And one of the big players, because this was back when there was actually a sector and there were lots of people jumping onto each other's streams and arguing, and Ralph was like a big deal, and he wasn't like a complete train wreck. This was like right around like the Hill stream era, moving on to stream.me and stuff. And one of the guys heavy in this was Zoom. Zoom is a file. He's been a file or known to be a for a very long time. Because way back when he had an argument on in public on a stream with a girl that he was talking to, and it was revealed that he made her watch pornography together, and the details of what kind of pornography it was came out in this conversation, and it's pretty dire. It's really disgusting, and for some reason, Zoom is kind of like, I would say he's like dark triad. He's definitely somebody that lacks emotion, and what's weird about him is that he is one of the most arrogant in the face of the planet. Like there's some like this guy literally cannot stop for a second, and he would get on these streams and he would like try to like dox, and I don't want to say like the people that he was with would do things that were like ostensibly illegal. So he developed this reputation. He never got much of a following because he's a loser, and people would just start calling him if they were bold enough to do so. But eventually he off because he couldn't get a following in public because everyone would just call him a. And even when he came back under different names, people would just call him a again because he has a really distinct way of talking, and it was really obvious it was him because he would just start deep throating himself like on the mic every time. So he never was able to become like a big celebrity like he wanted to. Instead, he became a chief operating officer at a company called Path. And there are audio logs of Corey Barnhill, who now goes by Corey Shiratori. He actually changed his name to August Hart, which I mentioned before is the name of the comic book character Godspeed. So he literally named himself after the comic book character that he's obsessed with. Like if you look at his room, like there are videos of him doing Zoom meetings for Path, like with customers, and he's in his room, and his room is like dark, gloomy goblin den, and you can see like the Godspeed, like the comic book character apparel and like lights on his wall, like posters. So he's in like this man-child goblin dungeon, surrounded by comic book paraphernalia as an adult, as like a C-level executive at an ISP. Really cringe. Um, and he literally named himself after this comic book character too, as a way to dodge accusations that he's a pedophile, because he went online and said that he was a pedophile and watched pornography. Now we had issues. So my brilliant idea a couple years ago was that I was going to register with ICANN and get my own IP address and subnet. And I thought that if I did this, there would be no way we could get deplatformed anymore. I would effectively be an ISP, and I've never heard of ISP level deplatforming before, so we would be immune to deplatforming if I did this. However, one of the first things that happened to us was that at FiberHub, they use Path for DDoS filtering. And I did not know that Corey Barnhill was involved at Path. And as a result, when we were DDoS attacked, I'd switch us over to the DDoS filtered Path networks. Corey eventually figured it out, probably because he was DDoSing us. If we're being serious, it's very likely that he was initiating, because allegedly Path is known to DDoS companies to try and then sell them DDoS protection. That is an allegation that has been thrown around. Well, at some point, Corey realized that we were using Path for DDoS mitigation, so he blocked our subnet. And I only realized this because we would get DDoS attacked, and then when I would switch us over to Path, it would just null route everything. which actually kind of worked in our favor at sometimes, because if we were DDoS attacked, I'd just turn off the internet basically by doing that, and I would route around us in secret. So I would only keep the network down during the attacks. This eventually caused FiberHub to switch over to Zayo, which offers similar services, and it started the long decline of Path as a company, because they were actually really big. They were a multi-million-dollar company, handling lots of money, and now they're on the verge of bankruptcy. But they very loudly and proudly were the first company to deplatform the Kiwi Farms. And when Drop Kiwi Farms happened, like, they were on Twitter bragging about deplatforming the Kiwi Farms, which is why it brings me immense joy, mirth, pleasure, spiritual happiness to point out that they are not only being sued by multiple people, they're actually they are themselves are being deplatformed. They've lost an ISP as a result of non-payment. I think it's down here somewhere. Let's see. Here. So this is their non-payment status. And they're being sued by Collegix Canada for non-payment. But they're an Arizona company, Path is. They also lost Talia, which is a tier 1 ISP, for non-payment. And now they're single home by GTT. GTT is a tier 1 ISP, but they're also in a state of default. So it looks like GTT is not terminating any contracts, even for outright non-payment, because they themselves are in bankrupt. And I think that they would rather just keep the account and hope that they would start paying it later, rather than lose the account and not have any chance of getting payment. So there you go. But they're literally connected right now to the internet by a single ISP, and they're losing a ton of transit in the process. I think I mentioned last stream that Cogent also lost a tier 1 ISP. Oh wait, no, here. I definitely totally have turned off fucking network sound effects. Why is it doing this? It is off. Oh, I have to mute Thunderbird as well. Okay, that's fixed. Oh, they were kicked by NTT. Sorry, Cogent was dropped by Talia. Path was dropped by NTT, and now they're only on GTT, which are completely different companies. They have similar sounding names, but they're completely different. So my whole point with this is that Path collapsing is one of the funniest things ever. It is actually hilarious to know that this is going down in flames, and then when it collapses, Corey Barnhill will still be a notorious who has zero chance at removing the evidence that he admitted that he watches from the Kiwi Farms, and nobody will hire him because his only experience is in a bankrupt company as a C-level executive, and also being known as a oh, they were dropped by Talia NTT, and Cogent has been de-peered with NTT and EU. Okay, sorry, I do not have the map of the internet in my brain, unlike some people. Anyways, yeah, it's really funny. It's really funny watching this. Look at this. Augustus Hart. He named himself after a comic book character. That's one of the most embarrassing things ever. And now he's made that. Now, if you Google the comic book character, you see that the comic book character after Murphy. I don't know, sex aside. And the funniest thing about this, I can't even tell you. My feud, or rather, Corey's feud with me, is like the longest boomerang ever cast. Path deliberately trying to f with the Kiwi Farms has resulted in long-term prospects for the forum that are impossible to really adequately describe right now. I'll just phrase it like this: Corey and Path hating you and going and forging court documents to try and trick providers into shutting you down is one of the best forms of advertisement and goodwill that you can possibly ask for on the internet. The way that works.